I'm Carol from Sunbury, Ohio.
I'm a Republican, but I don't care who does the job as long as the job gets done. That's why I like Sherrod Brown. He stood up to both parties on China and worked with Republicans to fight fentanyl because Sherrod fights for Ohio. That's leadership.
Paid for by friends of Sherrod Brown.
It feels like you can get your credit scores anywhere these days. Random websites, card statements, budgeting apps, heck, even your dog might bark out a few numbers. It's true. Credit Karma isn't the only place you can find them. But we actually do more with your scores to help you find your next financial opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! The possibilities are kinda endless. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest Anfield Index Under Pressure podcast. My name's Dan Kennett and with me for a special international break podcast reviewing the season so far. I've got the full team. I've got Sai, I've got Hamzah, I've got Phil, Dr Barts. Evening, chaps.
Cool.
But we are on the clock, and I really apologise if there's the sound isn't up to its usual quality. I am not in my normal recording situation, so we're trying to make do as best we can here. But without further ado, Sai, another 2 international games, and another lot of Liverpool LFC player participation.
A whole ton of travelling, a whole ton of participation.
So last window was the most minutes ever, I think you said, by Liverpool players played in a single international break.
Yeah.
Were we close again this time?
Actually, it's not even a number I'd looked at. Yeah, we will be close. Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe not quite as many this time.
It wasn't quite as many this time. No, we got a couple of freebies. Like there was no Ali, which is either game. There's no Mac only played at the end of the game. Virgil missed the game from getting sent off, but Darwin was back and played both. Grab had a bit of a rest. Gakpo had a tiny bit of a rest, and Endo missed one game.
Wow!
So they all played all of the games in the first international block,
which is a week ago. Yeah. We are recording this Wednesday before the next league game at Chelsea, and as we always like to do, we always want to talk about the impact of internationals on our players and do a bit of a fatigue index, assessing the lay of the land with injuries. So Sai, I guess if you're looking at projections for the season, I think this is where you wanted to start. It's looking quite hot for the season overall. What we're going to be asking our players to do in terms of minutes played.
Yeah. And you have to caveat where we're at currently with the one game a week for 3 weeks to start.
Yeah.
So if you project as a number of weeks, and we've played 9 weeks, that's not representative of the minutes per week for the rest of the season. So it's going to increase, and this is the first one. So we have 2 periods now, which are a game every 3.1 days, and it's why why I fundamentally feel like you need to get knocked out of the stupid cups early, because it makes such a huge difference. We don't have any wiggle room right now in this block. There's not a single full day of recovery. We play 3 games on the 3rd day and 4 games on the 4th day after a game. So you don't recover until after the 4th day. And we play on the 4th day 4 times, and we play on the 3rd day 3 times. So there's going to be lots of rotation that has to occur, even though we're really low on rotation, and we've done it once.
Which was the last game before the international break.
Yeah.
So what as it stands now with we always say, one of the mantras of this show is that fatigue doesn't care what colour jersey you wear. With the players that, everybody's been playing more, another 2 more games, what's it looking like for the players in terms of their career maximums, and how much have they physically done before?
So on the current trajectory, if we literally just divide the number of minutes they played by the number of weeks of the season so far, which is not actually a fair projection, as I said, because the weekly minutes are going to increase significantly, and they remain much higher than the first 3 weeks of the season. But if we just do that for now, we have Trent, we have Ibu, we have Mac, we have Grav, and we have Jota, all going to hit well above 125% of their career maxes. And we had 5 players last season that are in the first team that had career maxes last year. So we're making huge jumps, a couple of them, like really significant. If you think of Ibu's career max is 3,919 minutes.
Yep.
He's on target for nearly 5,200.
Wow.
That's such a significant jump. He is coming into peak age, peak physiological maturity, but he's also been selected full-time for the French team as well, it seems, as well, at the same time as Trent is. So that, at the same period that international football has suddenly decided to double, basically, and now everyone's coming down on FIFA because they have to play too many games. But our lads are actually getting into all of the teams right now doing that. We also have Grav, whose peak is 3,900, and he's currently he's our second highest player, 5,400 minute season, which is huge.
And what's Trent on for? 5,006?
5,500.
Wow. I mean, so rare that a player gets above 5,500, right? Any player.
Yeah. So we've got outfield players. So Ali is a beast, but these guys are proper workhorses. So you got Robbo, who has had 2 5,500 minute seasons. You've got Virgil, who's had 2 5,500 minute seasons, and you've got Mo, who's had 2 5,500 minute seasons. And they are world renowned for their robustness, their availability.
Trent isn't, is he? To be fair,
no. Trent's maximum is 4.6.
Yeah.
So he worked out, I think, 49 games, and he's on for 62.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 ways to want to discuss this quickly. First of all, the injury situation. Nothing new, is that right? Even another 2 games, nothing new?
No, and it all kind of looks good, doesn't it, from a relative injury perspective, season on season. This is amazing.
The only thing that we heard was that the Egyptian FA in their statement said that Salah had potential back and knee injuries, I think it was, didn't they? But he had Ryan. Could just be them covering their arse about letting him go back, yeah.
Yeah. So at the same week of the season, beginning of the 3rd block of games, or week 9, the end of week 9, over the last 8 seasons, we've only had fewer games missed through injury once. 19-20.
Amazing. So that's the good news. And then
just in relation to last season, After 9 weeks of the season, how many games missed did we have? So we got 23 this season. How many had we had last season?
Well, I think I remember in the bloody the season after we nearly did the quad that season, that was even worse. That was something insane. So last season, I reckon it's going to be at least double. So I'm going to go 50.
88.
88. Nice. Yeah, and
we had loads of lads begin the season injured and miss all 12 games of the first block.
Yeah. So we were just behind.
And now we don't have any. We just have Harvey. Harvey's the only one that's been a recurrent injury.
Yeah. And Allison, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ali now is injured twice, so he's missed 2 sets of games. And Harvey's coming back. Harvey will be available at the weekend, so
nice.
It's nice to have around. So we've got the opportunity to rotate. A couple of things going through these numbers that really surprised me. I went through basically blocks of the same period for all our players, right? So each season, how many minutes that each lad had played after the same block of games. And so far this season, Trent is on 1,178. Robbo's on just over 1,000. Virgil's nearly 1,200. Ibu's over 1,100. Max 1,100. Grav is over 1,100. Mo's at 1,000. These are high numbers for a few players. But what really surprised me was Gakpo, who is at 670. He's had what? I went back through youth football as well, and I didn't realise that in Holland, 1,550 minutes he played
for the national team.
No, by this stage of the season, by October the 15th in the season, he had played 1,550 minutes because they started the season earlier, and there was one season where the Europa League qualifiers. Doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter that they started the season earlier. It's still the same point of the season compared to the rest of Europe.
Yeah,
he's still that's 1,500 minutes is half a good season. We talk about 3,000 minutes being a deep that's a first team player's season.
Yeah,
and he played half twice.
So the other thing that we have to bear in mind is in the next block is particularly the first game. The first game after the international break. Obviously, this time is Sunday 4:30. We haven't got our normal 12:45 on a Saturday, which seemed to be compulsory for us, I think, for a long time. But
everyone last season, wasn't it?
Yeah, crazy. So the first game back is a particular challenge, I think, before we get back into the churn of the 3 games a week thing. But obviously, then with Liverpool, we've got to try and lay the Nottingham Forest bogey to rest as well, haven't we? Because that was such a bad performance. Obviously one absolute stinker in an otherwise 10-game run, which was largely excellent, which we'll come on to. So what are you looking at for the first game, Si, in terms of who's really hot, who can we use more, and what options might there be? What might be the best options for Sunday?
So the thing about our rotations have been, but the key component of what's happened in the last 3 weeks is that internationals last 2 weeks and there are 2 games. So there's lots of travel, but their chronic load has dropped. So nobody is hot on the scale that we typically use, unless we factor in lads that didn't play before, like Kelleher.
Jones.
Well, Curtis hasn't played any, so he's not hot at anything. So he's played 1 game in 3 weeks, some of 1 game basically in 3 weeks. So he doesn't have high chronic load either. So the acute chronic workload relationship is just it's all low for everybody because they had a high chronic load for the 3 weeks leading in, and everybody's come down because it's down to 1 game a week when they were playing 2. So before it, Robbo was 196. His acute load leading into the international break was 196 minutes for that week. But then since, it dropped down to, Virgil's. And it's dropped down to 90 because he only played 1 game a week. So that's not high. the thing we got to factor in at this point is the amount of travel and the time zone coverage that I talked about before.
Yeah.
Like, Endo only played one game, but he still had to travel 14,500 miles and do 16 time zones.
Was it in Japan?
Yeah.
Game? No,
yeah. But Mac's done 20,000 miles.
Yeah.
That's such a significant toll on the body. See, 20,000 miles to come on as a sub in the last game. And so it's not just the travel, there are real stresses, physiological stresses that happen to the body if you long haul within 2 days of the exercise, which they did. So you've got Diaz, you've got Darwin, you've got Mac, you've got so they're and Endo. They're your 5 big long haulers that you've got to be a little bit worried about. But we have that extra day of recovery. So my feeling is they'll go first team, like proper. You can pick the team now.
Okay.
And then they'll deal with the rotation when it comes to Leipzig. Maybe because we're in a good spot in the Champions League already. So you can do your 2 or 3 rotations in that period, is my guess, because you want the first team for Chelsea and Arsenal.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
And just having that extra day and 3 hours between kickoffs, what difference does that make in recovery terms?
It's 20% extra recovery. If you recover, if your body physiologically takes 4 days, if you have the long haul, it should take 5. So if you have an extra day on top of your 3 days, you've basically got you're 20% further recovered than you would have been without it.
Nice. 20%, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
I don't know what state Mac's in, but he would have been less metabolically depleted getting on a plane. So it's going to be less stressful for him physiologically.
Okay. Well, it's pretty reassuring that, you're saying that the sports science team, from where you're sitting with the data you're seeing, green flag to go in the strongest 11 against Chelsea.
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, we've talked about it before. The data that's publicly available right now is their loading data because they don't train. Yeah. So when you play twice a week, there's no real training load that's going to factor into whether they can play or not. So this is real world data is as accurate as you could really need it to be, with a few niggle stress caveats that we don't get to hear about publicly.
That's super. Right, now I know you have to duck out for an appointment site, so anything else you wanted to raise before you finish off today and hand it over to the rest of us?
Sure.
Anything else you wanted to bring in?
No, I'm good. I think I got all the block in.
Super. So Hamzah and Barts, that was pretty eye-opening stuff, right? But ultimately, looks like good news.
Yeah, very much so. I think we were all probably, certainly the Mac news and a few others were like, okay, let's see how it pans out. But as always, so with the numbers, reassures. I think it's important we have got a strong side against Chelsea, because it'll probably be fair to say our first big test. Would that be fair? They're more informed than United. I think Hamzah's already been pretty derogatory against United, but I would say I think Chelsea seem to be some way, in shape or form, are getting themselves into a place of better competitiveness, shall we say? So I would say Chelsea's an important game for us to see how far we come. Seeing we beat them quite comfortably last season, but we were. That's probably our purple patch, the game we went to. That was probably when we were playing some really good football.
Yeah, at the end of January, that was really good. One of the best, might have even been the best performance of last season. The home game against Chelsea.
Yeah, I was going to say probably in the top 5 for sure. So it'd be a good. I think it's a big good yardstick. But this next block, to have the key games, key players available for those key games, as Si outlined, it is going to be absolutely critical. I think it's often oversaid, but this really, I think, will set the tone for the season, this next block, for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what Hamzah think.
It's a good way to start it with a potentially a fully fit squad. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So, Hamzah, obviously picking up tips there for the questions you're going to ask Arna. Yes, top tips. Your thoughts on the overall situation with the squad going into this crazy period and a much more difficult period in terms of fixture-wise?
I think that the last point that Si mentioned about, well, not the last point, the point about players having a low load at the moment is important. There is an element of sort of contingency and luck here. We are just going to have to hope that we don't have 1 or 2 injuries that can cause a sort of cascade of injuries. I think we've discussed before. I remember Si brought up the example of how common it is for when you've got 2 starting centre-backs and one gets injured and the third one comes in and they're cold, suddenly that third player gets an injury, the fourth player comes in, and then even they might get injured too. When you've got a few players that are cold, that there is you need a bit of luck. So, and that sort of stuff is out of, we can manage it as best as we can, but again, sometimes you can get unlucky. So we seem fairly well prepared, but again, it just depends. We're going to need a little bit of luck to help us navigate this period. And if it's on our side, then super.
Yeah, and obviously, one of your favourite players, Harvey Elliott, being back is a bonus. That'd be nice. It'd be nice to see him get some games. So maybe against, say, for example, against Leipzig. We got Keys had a minor knock, and I think the only other one was the concern potentially over McAllister. But and Allison. Sorry,
of course, yeah. I think just given how important Szoboszlai is in terms of his running output to the team, so even when he's not giving too much on the ball, the work that he does to support the press and cover space in midfield when McAllister and Gravenberch need a bit of support is really important. So being able to keep him as fresh as possible and give him rest where possible, even if it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes or even more, is really useful. So having Elliott back will help with that and mitigate any sort of mitigate the possibility that he's overloaded. And likewise, Curtis Jones as well. We only saw a little bit of him, but we saw him move around in the last game before the international break.
Really good performance,
which suggests that his flexibility can help with this as well. So maybe he could be played a bit further forward or a little bit deeper, which means that he can mitigate some of that load for Szoboszlai perhaps sometimes for McAllister. I think Jones will have a fairly big role in the coming weeks and stuff. He might be off for again. This bit now is a little bit of a speculation. He might be off because he's just had his first child, so a few days away. I think he'll play an important role in the coming weeks.
So is his partner giving birth now? Is she? Yeah?
Yes, that's why. So he was called up to the England squad. He was largely sort of expected to play in the second match, but he didn't travel to Finland. He dropped. He went back home rather than travel to Finland, and I think England and the club said it was personal reasons. And then he posted on his social media page the other day that his partner had a child. So congratulations to him. But that's the reason why he went up to join the England squad but didn't play.
Yeah. Anyway, congratulations to Curtis. Anyway, we're here to talk about some numbers now and some tactics. because the doc has done an absolutely fantastic piece, even by your wizardry, Phil. This is pretty amazing, right? So what we've got to share with you lovely people is a season so far stats pack of all, not the West Ham game, but the other 9 games, including the 2 Champions League games, into the normal stats pack template with a particular focus on game states. And we're going to have a look at that, because I think one of the themes I laid a challenge down to Phil and said, can we look to see if the data is telling us anything about the performances when the game, because we talked about game state and being good when it's close and maybe taking our foot off of the gas in garbage time. We wanted to look for maybe some deeper patterns and trends in the data. And Barts, I think it's fair to say we found some.
Yeah, I think it is. I will run a final version of it for the guys and update. The URL will stay the same as we release it, but just an update. But I think the patterns that we can go through the pod and laying on some tactical insights from Hamzah. We've chatted about this change that the starter side has of being in the different states and how it affects our shape and our build and our defensive positioning. And I think some of it shows you that. I think equally, just looking at the MCs, our probability to win at the various game states.
That's a Monte Carlo simulation.
Yeah, it's quite staggering to conceive that. I think it is probably fair to say we're running a little hot if you look at some of the distribution of the goals. We probably should have considered a little bit more, particularly garbage time, which we have commented on, right? We've given away XG, which generally does lead to goal scoring opportunities. But I mean, when we're winning with something like 91% to win the game probability, which is quite in that game state, I should say. Sorry, not for the whole thing. Yeah. So
while we're on an international break, I think it's worthwhile doing an explainer on Monte Carlo simulations. So just to test my understanding, but the Monte Carlo simulates the outcome based on the probability of underlying trials, and in this case, in the case of expected goals, it's like whether it's a goal or not a goal, yes, or whether it's a save or not a save, and that's it. So for example, it's a 20% shot, it's got 20% chance of being scored and 80% chance of being missed. So, and then when you run that, you aggregate all the shots in that way and you run them all in a simulation. And then it's the software, isn't it, that runs everything. How many times do you run it? 1,000 times, 10,000 times?
1,000, yeah. It just runs it. It runs it pretty quick. I mean, you blink of an eye and it'll run.
You need software, though, don't you, to run it? You need
software.
Yeah,
you need like any sort of like MATLAB or R, or I use R, but Python as well. Just run it as you set a seed at 1,000. You put the inputs in, as you said, the probabilities for each of the events, and you test how many times in that 1,000 sims would you get X out of that probability. Yeah. Some models will run up to 10,000, which will give you probably a more accurate, but it takes a little bit more processing power. And as you go through the season, I shared with you guys the data file for this, just for 9 games. It's a huge Excel file when you get the season's worth of data in your log computing file. But yeah, that's the beauty of XG and also negativity, right? It's looking at the probability of A conceding and A scoring, and it works that out. I have chatted in Discord, as you know. I might try and look to refine that model to build in threat as well, because that's based on a very minutiae, granular level of probability, but it's still saying on that scale to say from this point what is the likelihood that you're going to create threat to lead a goal. So it's still a similar kind of concept, and looking at difference as well. So I will try and build that into a different model going forward. But yes,
don't dismiss micro probabilities, because isn't that how Tony Bloom makes all his money, by micro betting? Tiny bets on small events.
Exactly. That's basically spread betting, isn't it? Over a large.
But he just places millions of bets and just takes up small.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if he's winning 52% of them overall or something,
yeah. So that's effectively what you're looking at. This is a very simplistic version of that, but they will run that computer-wise and be like, right, and generally they'll try and, because we were chatting in the country, wasn't it, about bookmakers, and they'll have their own sophisticated model, but generally the odds they produce, there isn't a lot of value in it, whereas Bloom, will have something to assess. Yeah, and they'll work out, is there any value in that odd? And then that's where they'll place the bet on if they think that the bookmakers have got it slightly off, which is unusual, but even by a little percent, I mean, they can make a profit on something they think is more likely to happen than a bookmaker.
Yeah. So let's start with those top level outcomes before we delve down a bit into the stuff. So we've talked about overall match outcomes based on, and then we've obviously now got the game state for when the game is tied. So what are those overall outcomes and the Monte Carlo's looking like, Barts?
So overall, we were about 77% to win the games. That's overall. That's all games. To win, we're at 91%, and that is looking like conceding one goal while we're winning and scoring. This is while we're in the winning state, by the way. It's not in a game, by the way. Just so that people clear, it's probably 9 goals. We should have conceded 1. And scored 9 in that sort of winning state, should we say? Yeah. Drawing is 91% chance of winning from that position for us in terms of the XG we produced, and that is also saying we should concede 1 in that state, and between 4 and 5 goals. Now, when I rerun it, that might jig around slightly because there's a slight error of one of the goals. And garbage time again will take an impact because of that, but that's around 70% chance of winning while we're in garbage time. And we have run a bit hot in garbage time. It is fair to say that we should have conceded around 3 goals in garbage time and scored a further 5 goals, or scored 5 in that area. So yeah, that sort of gives you an idea that I think that also backs up what we've been saying. We've been happy to give up that XG in garbage time. That's why it's called that, because we've got the 2-goal lead. But we're also still quite highly likely to win in that period of time as well.
Yeah. And then, so just on the overall, so it's about 4.6 when we're tied to 1.4 against, and in garbage time, it's you put it home and away. But yeah, so it's a lot closer. So I think I'd say my reading of it when I looked at it was we keep things quite close and low event and control things more, and later on the game kind of breaks open a bit, and it's quite open at both ends. Is that fair?
That's very fair. I think also if you look at some of the other stats we normally look at for any game, you'll see that I bang on about threat to XG conversion. In garbage time, it just drops down. Our level just drops off. It kind of pretty much drops off a cliff. You know what I mean? As soon as we get ahead. Whereas when you're looking at us pushing for the 2-goal lead, we're up at over 200% for that conversion for threat to XG. And when we're drawing, again, we're pushing really hard around just below that magical mark of 150. So you can see that those are the periods we really push for goals. But once we're in that period of time, it just drops off and we just don't, we sort of really look at it. So, yeah. Yeah.
So Hamzah, we've done the easy stuff so far. We talked about the outcomes of it all, and the outcomes are pretty nice. But always the more challenging bit is the how. How have we done it? The process. And but there are also, I think, even in the data visuals, there's some very nice things on the process that we're following, right?
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.